Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 5:49 and a reminder that a commercial spacecraft is approaching the moon. Live pictures on your screen now of Command HQ. A private company has teamed up with NASA. We'll keep you updated when it happens. But now to another out of this world story. A new report reveals that young women are now earning more than young men for the first time. The Lost Boys report, published by the Centre for Social Justice, highlights how a generation of young men are struggling more in education and in life outcomes than ever before. And I'm delighted to say now I'm joined by the Goliath, the legend, the England Rugby World Cup winner and the founder of Rugby Works charity, Lawrence Dallaglio. Lawrence, an absolute delight to have you on the show. Concerning reports, boys falling behind at school, never catching up. Young men are more than twice as likely now to be unemployed as young men, and a heartbreaking number, 2.5 million kids are now growing up without a father figure at home. Lawrence, you put your name to this report. What motivated you to get involved?
Well, first of all, this is a report carried out by the CSJ, the Centre for Social Justice, independent government think tank, if you like. It's the government's conscience, created by Inga Duncan Smith many years ago. I mean, listen, boys are behind girls. You know, we know that. You know, it takes a while for young men to develop. I've got 2 daughters and a son. My son was the youngest, and, you know, this report tells me exactly what I knew. But what's really worrying about this report is, I think, the gap that's now grown between young boys and their girl counterparts. You know, we're talking about boys being in crisis right from primary school all the way through to when they leave school. And, you know, just to throw a few of the statistics at you, since the pandemic, 40% of young boys between the age of 14 and 18 find themselves, you know, outside of employment and education, versus 7% of young girls. You know, there's obviously a lot of broken homes in the UK. More and more young boys are finding themselves in crime, in prison. There's less role models, and we spend our life tiptoeing around other sections of society, but really the area we really need to focus on is young boys. And this report was telling us these problems 10 years ago. Unfortunately, the government then did nothing about it. And really what we found with this report now is the same problems exist. They're just much, much bigger. You know, young boys, I think 25% are more likely to have a mobile phone than they are to live with their father. I mean, it's deeply concerning. What this report does is highlight the problems, gives this government plenty to think about. And I think later on in, hopefully this summer, we may come up with some solutions to challenge what's currently happening.
And Lawrence, of course, what people really need and crave is a male role model, a positive male role model in their lives, and what a role model they've got in you. And let's talk about your charity, Rugby Works charity. You work with young lads. You're on the front line with some of these boys who are craving purpose, craving a role model. Tell us about how you can turn their lives around to motivate them through sport. Well,
I work with young kids who found themselves excluded from mainstream education. Wherever you live in the country, there'll be a pupil referral unit in your area. Unfortunately, 230 young people between the age of 14 and 17, let me repeat that, 230 are excluded every single week. That is a worrying statistic. It's double what it was 2 or 3 years ago. And even more concerning is that 65% of those 230 a week end up in our prison system. So what Rugby Works does is we work with young people. We go into pupil referral units. We deliver a programme that starts off with rugby, but actually we get them into full-time employment and education, and we have an 87% success rate. You know, no young person in this country, no young boy is born bad. They're just born into quite chaotic circumstances. And I would ask the question, if you were 14 again, Martin, and you found yourself born into chaos, would you want someone to come and help you, you know, to get yourself into, you know, sustained employment and education? This government needs to create a cross-party group that actually deals with this problem, because let's be honest, whoever deals with it, the credit and the reward for it is not going to be received in the next couple of years. It's going to be something that happens in 5-10 years' time. But I think what programmes like mine show is that, you know, you can turn people's lives around, you can change behaviours, and, you know, the one-stop-fits-all university role of educating young people in this country is a busted flush. It's not fit for purpose. We need to start thinking very differently about how we educate young boys.
OK. Lawrence Deladio, absolutely inspirational stuff. Thank you so much for coming on GB News today, and the very best of luck. And if there are some solutions come forward, please come back on the show and tell us what they are. We'd love to signal boost it. Thank you so much for your work and all your sporting heroes. Magnificent. Thank you very much. That's all from me for today. Don't worry, up next is Dewbs & Co. And later on, of course, Farage, the man is back. But now it's time for your weather. Have a great evening.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head through this evening and overnight, it is going to be turning cloudier with some showers and also some longer spells of rain. But with more cloud in the skies, that means things aren't going to be turning quite as chilly as they have done recently. And it's all as a result of low pressure dragging in some frontal systems, so bringing in more cloud and also some outbreaks of rain overnight. Firstly into the west, and then it slowly pushes its way eastwards. But plenty of dry and clear spells across parts of central and southeastern England. So turning a little bit chillier here. Could possibly see once again another patchy frost by the morning, and then towards dawn once again across Scotland, parts of Northern Ireland, we could see some patchy frost here as skies begin to clear. But across northern parts of England, northern parts of Wales in particular, plenty of low cloud and some damp weather to start on Friday. Across Scotland, though, a slightly drier picture. As I mentioned, some clearer skies, which means some patchy frost at times. I can't rule out a few showers just skirting the far north of Scotland too. Once again, a brighter start across Northern Ireland, but for much of northern England, parts of Wales, still plenty of low cloud, likely going to be quite a murky start with some outbreaks of rain, similar across parts of Cornwall too. But for East Anglia, parts of Sussex and Kent, a brighter but chillier start, and then through the course of the day, that's where we'll see the best of the brightness, so more sunny skies on offer. But for many, it's going to be a much cloudier day, quite damp at times too, but brightening up later across parts of Scotland as well. So Scotland, the southeast, that's where we'll see the best of the sunshine, but for many, it's going to be a much cloudier and murky day on offer, particularly across parts of the west. But temperatures still widely above average, so highs around 15, possibly 16 Celsius, where we see the sunshine stick around. Through into the evening, not much change, still plenty of cloud across the country, outbreaks of rain at times, mostly light rain and drizzle, and still some clearer skies across parts of the southeast. More sunshine to come as we head into next week, but temperatures dipping away, so seeing some colder nights and days on offer. Bye-bye.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good evening, I'm Johnny Ratner. Long delays in South Yorkshire on two motorways. First of all, the M1 is down to a single lane northbound, 34 to 35 towards Rotherham. Emergency repairs continue after a lorry caught fire. Everyone's been funneled into the outside lane past the scene. And the A1M is partly blocked northbound in Doncaster, where a lorry's broken down. Very slow still in the West Midlands on the M6 northbound. A car broke down just after 6 Spaghetti Junction, and the inside lane stays closed for recovery work. In Shropshire, east of Telford, the A41 Newport Road stays closed off the Pickmere roundabout following a collision. And in Devon, just east of Holsworthy, the A3072 closed as you head out towards Anvil Corner, where a car is overturned. Finally, in Denbighshire, about a mile east of Riffin, the A494 is closed. Accident investigation work continues at Llanferris, causing queues. And that's the very latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
It's the final week to see how you could be one of two big winners in our latest giveaway, as we have two prize bundles that have to be won. There's 2 lots of a totally tax-free £10,000 in cash. You'll also receive a brand new iPhone 16, along with £500 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite store. Hurry, lines close on the 7th of March. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hello there, it's 6 o'clock. I'm Michelle Dewberry, and this is Dewbs & Co. Coming up tonight, it's been a big day for world peace today, as emergency summits have taken place to look at how Europe can rearm itself. Donald Trump has been told that he is basically a danger to the world order, and it's also been suggested if that there was European troops to help with peacekeeping, that would essentially be seen as NATO at war with Russia. I mean, where do we even begin with all this stuff, ladies and gents? I'll tell you someone who is benefiting when it comes to the polls, and that is Keir Starmer. His popularity rating is going up and up and up. Reform UK and Nigel Farage, though, going in the opposite direction. Also want to talk to you tonight about what has been called two-tier justice. Have you seen this about the sentencing remarks? Many people are saying that ethnic minorities are being treated differently and that white working class boys and men are yet again being disadvantaged. We've got all of that and lots more coming up tonight, I can tell you. Keeping me company, I've got Kelvin McKenzie and Bill Rammell. But before we get stuck in, let's cross live and give you your 6 o'clock news headlines.
Michelle, thank you and good evening. It's 1 minute past 6. I'm Katie Bowen in the GB newsroom. GB News understands this evening that 20 countries are in talks about joining a coalition of the willing to keep the peace in Ukraine. It was announced earlier today that the UK government has signed a £30 million deal to provide Ukraine's armed forces with more advanced attack drones to tackle Russian aggression in the Black Sea. Sir Keir Starmer said the UK will play a leading part in terms of defence and security. Posting on X after that EU leaders summit in Brussels, President Zelensky said that, quote, everyone must ensure that Russia, the sole source of this war, accepts the need to end it. He went on to add that the next step is basic trust in the circumstances in which the negotiations are taking place. The Prime Minister spoke to GB News' Catherine Forster a short time ago. We'll bring you that later. Triple killer Kyle Clifford has been found guilty at Cambridge Crown Court of raping his ex-partner Louise Hunt in an attack which saw him murder her and her sister with a crossbow and their mother with a butcher's knife. The 26-year-old was found guilty by a jury at Cambridge Crown Court after around 45 minutes. Clifford had previously denied rape. He previously admitted murdering Louise, Hannah and Carol Hunt at their home in Bushey in July last year. Clifford was tried in his absence after refusing to leave his cell at HMP Belmarsh. Justice Secretary Shabana Mahmood has urged the Sentencing Council to reconsider its new guidance for judges to take account of a criminal's ethnicity when deciding their punishment as soon as possible, adding that she will review its powers and change the law if necessary. That comes as Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch also said her party would back a change in the law to overrule the Sentencing Council. The changes due in April would place more emphasis on pre-sentence reports, particularly for offenders from ethnic or faith minorities, young adults, abuse survivors and pregnant women. The Sentencing Council says its reforms aim to ensure consistency and avoid bias in the justice system. And the Prince of Wales has spoken in detail today about his first session as a crisis helpline volunteer for young people, describing the experience as terrifying. Prince William made the comments on a visit to mental health innovations in West London, adding that the conversations he had while volunteering in 2020 have, quote, lived with him for a long time afterwards. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now let's go back to Michelle.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much for that. I'm Michelle Dewberry. This is Dewbs & Co with you till 7 o'clock tonight. Alongside me, my panel, I've got Kelvin McKenzie, the former editor of The Sun, and Bill Rammell, the former Labour Minister. Good evening, gents, to both of you. You're very welcome tonight. As are each and every single one of you at home as well. What's on your mind this evening, ladies and gents? We've got a lot to discuss, I can tell you that. It's been yet another busy, bustling day in everyone's quest, it seems, to try and get world peace. But how we get there, it depends on your view as to who you support, about what that looks like. You can join the conversation all the usual ways. Email me gbviews@gbnews.com, go to the website gbnews.com/yoursay, or of course you can tweet or X me. Look, I'll start with a bit of good news. I do use the word bit quite generously there, because if you're a Barclays customer, you've just been hearing about that compensation then could be coming your way. That bank could have to spend up to £12.5 million to compensate customers. This is all because of outages, people struggling to basically get their hands on their own cash to do with it whatever they want. This is all right, isn't it? It's all right.
Well, it is, but I was saying to you, Michelle, it actually works out at 63p a head, so I'm not quite sure how much good news it is.
What can you get for 63p? What can you get for 63p in this day and age?
I was going to say a few stamps. You can't get anything like a stamp for 63 pence, can you?
In my day and age, you'd have been able to buy 6 Freddo bars. Do you know what a Freddo bar is?
No.
Do you know what a Freddo bar is?
No idea.
What?
You must be older than me.
What kind of people am I working with? Does anyone at home know what a Freddo bar is?
Kids. Sorry, I didn't say that.
Well, anyway, I don't think 63p would even be able to buy you a Freddo bar these days. And if you don't know what a Freddo bar is, quite frankly, there's not much else I can do to help you, I'm afraid. But look, all the big news today, of course, a world peace. That is the ambition and the aim. But how on earth do we go about trying to achieve it? Because, of course, we've had emergency EU summits today, Kelvin McKenzie. We've got lots of conversation about coalitions of the willing. Also, we've had suggestions that if you've got European peacekeeping troops on the border, that would essentially put Russia at war with NATO. Where do we even begin with some of this, Kelvin?
Well, the person that has all the cards, I'm afraid, is President Putin. So if he says, I'm not going to accept a European-wide force as part of the deal, I'm struggling to see how any of this can happen. He definitely won't be accepting the British, which is good, actually, in a funny way. It means that we have been fighting a very good fight, and if he hates us, good, we hate him. So that's great news. So I think we might end up with Australia, we might end up with Canada. I see bizarrely that even Luxembourg has offered some troops, which I didn't even know they had a standing army, to be honest with you. It's a good thing to watch all this happening. Unfortunately, I feel that this is happening around Ukraine and not with Ukraine at the centre. I don't know how they've got into this thing. They've got a standing army of nearly 1 million people, Ukraine. I mean, all the fact that they're all saying, we're going to get rid of you, we're not going to have anything. If the Ukrainians decided to fight, right, they could fight on. Now, I'm not sure how successful they would be, but they are, real terriers. I admire them no end. What they've done against Russia, Russia came in, everybody said it'd be 3 weeks. We go straight through them. Here we are, 3 years later, and actually, as everybody points out, Russia is losing troops through injury and death at 45,000 a month, right? Even Putin can't take that. So actually, I admire what's going on. I don't like the idea of France saying we'll deploy nuclear weapons onto or in defence of Ukraine. You know, that is Putin-type talk. We can't have a nuclear discussion, right? It's enough just to have them. You don't need to talk about them. So I wish them well in all this. I wonder how much of it is just hot air at the moment.
Bill?
The situation is so destabilising, bluntly, because of the way Donald Trump has treated one of our biggest allies, Ukraine, in the last couple of weeks. And I've never seen anything like it in my adult political life. But what is happening, the one nugget of sense that Trump is saying is that Europe needs to step up to the piece in terms of defence capability. And the fact that 800 billion euros is being committed, that the coalition of the willing appears to being assembled. And Kelvin may be right that, you know, we'll be anathema to the Russians, but others may step into the breach. And interestingly, Turkey is a major part of that, of those who've signed up as well. And I would say it, wouldn't I? But I think Keir's leadership, the Prime Minister's leadership, particularly the summit last week, has really galvanised this and pulled it together. But once we get it agreed, it's then got to be taken and negotiated with Trump, and then we need to go into bat with Putin. So there's a lot of steps of the process to go through.
Let me ask you a simple question, though. Do you think that we are, Bill, closer to a resolution in this war or further away following Trump's intervention? Because you're very critical of it.
Yeah, it feels like 2 steps forward, 1 step backwards with Trump. The other thing that really genuinely concerns me is that...
But you think we're closer to an end?
We're somewhat closer to it, but the poison within this is the deal that will be done is largely on Russia's terms. You know, from the beginning of this, Trump has said that the 20% of Ukraine that Russia already occupies, that's not up for grabs. How is that any way to conduct a set of negotiations where you're accepting that you know, that land grab will be accepted?
But then you must be equally as critical then about that press conference that we saw the tail end of it. That's been replayed to death. I won't replay it again, where it all kicked off. If you're kind of critical that you can't negotiate if your starting point is we're not going to discuss that land, are you equally critical then about Zelensky starting that press conference by saying essentially Putin is a terrorist, basically, and there will be no negotiation? No,
I don't think
compromise.
I don't think that's accurately what he said. And look, the guy's been pushed into a corner.
He did.
And you know, I think that conference in the White House was a pre-coordinated hit job to intimidate, to bully Zelensky, and I think that came across very clearly. But we are where we are. We've got to manage this process. We've got to manage the relationship with Trump, and then we've got to get the best.
Did you watch that whole?
I've watched it about 5 times.
Yeah, so he did say that. He started off by saying that Putin is basically a killer and a terrorist and it won't be compromised.
And by the way, why should anybody be surprised that he should say that?
Yeah.
I mean, he's lost 14,000 of his own people.
I'm not saying you'd be surprised or that you can't relate to it. I think it's completely understandable. I'm not attacking him for saying that. What I'm saying is, if on the one hand you're criticising and saying, well, hang on, because if what you're going to say is that land, it's not for conversation, it's not for compromise or whatever, and you think that's not helpful, how can you also then not think it's a little bit unhelpful to start a conversation about compromise?
Nobody knew that what was going on in Trump's mind was actually, we're not going to be standing by you. We aren't going to be your allies anymore. We're not going to be anybody's allies anymore. We're looking at the world as 3 blocks.
How could you
China, Russia and us. And actually, we don't give a damn about wars. We don't believe the battle is against Russia. We rather like Russia. Why do we like Russia? They're white. They don't believe in woke, right? And they believe in masculinity. what ridiculous ideas! But those ideas seem to align with Trump's view of the world and the people that he has around him. And on that basis, if I'm Zelensky, I think I'm going in to see friends. How did I know? I was actually going in to see basically an ally, an enemy, or somebody who actually spoke in the same or thought in the same way as Putin. How was I to know that? And at the end of it, not only did I know it, I had just seen, take your words, but one of the biggest political hit jobs in history. Do you know what? They are making films today of...
What was the biggest political hit job?
Well, the fact that
Trump
suddenly somebody you thought was a friend, exposing you on global television, actually putting you in your box. They made a film of Frost and Nixon. They actually made a movie of it. Imagine how many movies are going to be made of Trump Zelensky. We're watching a drama.
I agree with all of that, Kelvin. But look, you can make a critique of Zelensky. Contrast with Keir Starmer, right, who did an enormous amount of preparation. He couched his arguments in Trump's language. He flattered the guy like hell, and he got a reasonably good outcome. In contrast to that, Zelensky didn't do that. He's not a seasoned diplomat. He's only started speaking English since this war began. And, you know, so he faces immense challenges.
It's more complicated than that, I would say, because it's not just kind of he didn't prepare and he thought it was his mate or whatever. He has been consistently lauded, celebrated, welcomed, whatever essentially he's been asking for in some way, shape or form, at some point in time, he's got it. So then what's happened is he's gone to somebody. And Donald Trump, don't forget, he's got elected on a very clear America First ticket. He's told his population, look, we're spending absolute fortunes here, there and everywhere. I'm going to put you first. I'm going to put the American purse first. He's doing what he said he would actually do.
He never said he was going to sell Ukraine down the river in the way that he has in the last
No, he
week.
never said, well, hold on a second, all this money going out to Ukraine, defending, actually, the oppressed, actually, we're going to scrap it. Nobody could have forecast that. That is why there was such a bombshell over the outcome of it. I feel desperate for the people of Ukraine. I feel desperate for Zelensky, a great wartime leader who took on one of the biggest thugs outside Hitler in our modern history. And so suddenly he's now a little guy. Oh, he shouldn't have worn that suit. He shouldn't have done this. He shouldn't have done that. It's rubbish, right? Trump actually enjoyed humiliating a great man and a great country that's pushing back against these pigs in Russia.
And what did he say at the end of it? This is good TV.
Yeah.
I mean, that reveals the man more than anything.
I didn't like that. I've got to say that, because I watched the whole thing like you. I've watched it quite a few times, actually. And I did think to myself, Zelensky, I'm not really sure that you kind of prepared or whatever word it is that we want to use. But look, there's a meeting taking place about to start as we speak. Here we go. We've got John Healey there meeting his counterpart. You know, it really is quite fast-moving, all of this stuff, isn't it? And
don't you feel, though? Don't you feel that actually these meetings are not meetings in the way that Bill May negotiated when he was in government and everything? This is what tie would you like me to wear, President Trump? What would you like to say? What is going to be the outcome of this meeting? Why are we even having this meeting? Why don't you just tell me what you want and I'll go away and try and do it, which is the Starmer position, actually, to be honest.
Absolutely.
Actually, we've now got to the position where nobody in the world seems to be able to do anything without getting the God bless you from Trump. I object to that. I object to the humiliation of Zelensky, and I object to the fact, a little humiliation for even Starmer. Starmer's done all right out of it, but he was prepared to take it because he recognises we had no power in the argument. But do I think this is a reasonable way to conduct it? No, I don't. And we've got 4 years of this. 4 years. I'd be very worried if I were Nigel Farage.
It is a massively unreasonable way to conduct international relations. And I tell you what, my last job in government was Minister of State for the Armed Forces, and a big element of that was liaising with bereaved families. And when I heard J.D. Vance disparaging our troops and saying we've not taken part in a war for 30 or 40 years, that stinks.
We discussed that actually on the day, didn't we, JD Vance's comments, and there was quite a divided reaction to it among the audience at home. There was a real strength of feeling what you've just said. There were so many people, there were veterans as well getting in touch saying that they really did feel insulted. They really felt insulted. There were people that were telling me that they suffered with PTSD, Gulf syndrome, you name it. They knew people that had been maimed, and they were really offended by his comments. The other side of it were people saying, is this really what we're going to have now for the next 4 years? Every single word that someone says in perhaps a throwaway manner or whatever is going to be analysed, dissected. You know, people are going to be offended about it. Is that the style of diplomacy that we're going to have for 4 years?
In diplomacy, and I was a Foreign Office Minister for 3 years, your words are dissected. They are analysed. That's why you choose them carefully. There was no choosing carefully from these two. You know, Trump, who dodged the draft and avoided Vietnam, and Vance, who was a photographer in the army.
Interesting stuff. And after the break as well, I also want to look at what has all this been doing to popularity of people like Keir Starmer, Nigel Farage and so on. And I also want to talk to you as well about Donald Trump's plans, some of the ideas that he's had about Ukrainian refugees and what should happen to them in America. Also, someone joining the conversation after the break that's slightly, how shall I word it, slightly more pro-Trump. I'll see you in 2.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Tom Pickup, host of the Really 007 podcast. Hello, Tom. Thank you very much for joining. I've just been singing Live and Let Die to myself for some random reason. So what's going on here, then? Is Bond going to be changed forever? I mean, Barbara Broccoli was pretty hands-on and tough with what happened to that.
Yeah, you've got to think that this goes back to 1962 when it all started with Sean Connery and Dr. No. Her father, Cubby Broccoli, got the film rights and began the franchise and the movie character we all know as James Bond. So it's a big change. It was always going to come to an end eventually. Barbara took over pretty much when her father died, before GoldenEye, when Pierce Brosnan was the new Bond. But she's really had all the control with her half-brother, Michael G. Wilson, who's the other producer on Eon, since then, since 95, really. And they didn't cast Pierce Brosnan themselves. That was Cubby's casting. Their real casting was Daniel Craig. And I think now that that chapter has come to an end, and whether you liked it or not, it had a very definite ending, maybe that's been part of the reason where they think they'd rather spend their time in retirement doing something else. It's time to pass it on. And they've got a ready-made partner already in Amazon.
Is it going to get a little bit woke, though, Tom?
I've no idea, but all I know is that Jeff Bezos obviously is head of Amazon. He's already put a tweet up or on X saying, "Who do you want as the new James Bond?"
Oh, okay.
So he's already including the fans, which I suppose is a good thing. Whether or not we'll have a say, we don't know. But I think what it'll be is what people want, what people on the outside see as James Bond, not necessarily super fans like me.
The People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry. This is Dewbs & Co, and we're with you until 7 o'clock tonight. Alongside me, I've got my panel, Kelvin McKenzie and Bill Rammell. Lots of you getting in touch. My simple question to you, I'm going to ask you a simple question on this one about the situation with Trump and Ukraine. Do you think we're closer to peace in this situation or further away now that Donald Trump has started kind of getting involved and shaking things up? Get in touch with me all the usual ways and tell me. But now, let me cross live to a Republican commentator and columnist, Lee Cohen. Good evening to you, Lee. Let me put that question directly to you. Do you think we're closer to peace now that Donald Trump is involved in this way?
Many thanks for having me, Michelle. It's great to be with you. Let's be absolutely clear. President Trump's, the leverage that President Trump brings, he holds all the cards. And yes, indeed, I think we are closer to peace. There have been recent reports by Reuters and others that indicate that senior Trump officials have signaled that the Trump administration is planning to revoke the temporary legal status of 240,000 Ukrainians who fled to the U.S. during the conflict with Russia. This planning actually predates the Zelensky-Trump White House clash, but that's leverage too. In fact, I have a column on GBNews as we speak saying that Trump's given the playbook to Western leaders everywhere. Secure your borders, revive your economy, defy the global elite. I mean, he is really singing giving, as I say, the playbook, and the leverage that Trump commands and the cards that he holds mean that we are closer to peace.
Well, the Ukrainian ambassador to the UK says that Donald Trump is actually destroying the world order.
Well, I can certainly understand from the ambassador's perspective that may be the case. Trump is changing the world order. There's no question about it. The rules-based world order, the post-World War II rules-based world order, is probably a thing of the past. Donald Trump understands things from a business perspective, from a power perspective, and from a financial resources perspective. And that's really a realistic approach. And that's why he holds the leverage.
But do you think, I mean, because what we're having conversations about here in Europe now is actually, is it time for us to accept that this special relationship that many people thought we actually had is no longer a thing? We've just got to essentially kind of row our own boat, so to speak.
Hardly. The special relationship is even more important than ever. As you know, Trump is a great proponent of the special relationship. He has deep affection for the United Kingdom, for his own ancestral ties, for the monarchy. He understands the trading potential. He was absolutely behind the spirit of Brexit, the spirit of sovereignty, and about the UK being a very important independent partner for the United States, and the UK assuming an important global place in the world, Michelle.
Interesting stuff. Many people, I can see people on my panel even shaking their heads at some of the things that you are saying. I can tell you this, Donald Trump is certainly a divisive character, and we've got to strap ourselves in because I don't see this ending any time soon. But for now, Republican commentator and columnist Lee Cohen, thank you
Great supporter
for
of
your
sovereignty.
time.
Say that in Greenland or Canada.
Well, yeah, obviously, Donald Trump is very stern, isn't he, with his thoughts about Greenland. He wants it now, just so you can see on your screen. It's as I explained to you earlier on. Maybe we could just listen in, perhaps. This is the Pentagon now. We've got the Defence Secretary, John Healey, arriving to meet his counterpart as well. I mean, look at this pomp and ceremony. I mean, it is really quite something, isn't it?
Well, it is, and you know, it's an important relationship. I mean, look, you know, I've made it clear I think Trump is a monster, but he leads the global superpower, and we've got to negotiate and we've got to work with him and get the best out of it. But, you know, when I hear from the guy from Republicans overseas, leverage, what he actually means is bullying. And, you know, the whole of my adult political life, we've had a consensus in the West, and it was actually led by Reagan and Thatcher, that the then Soviet Union and now Russia was an existential threat to us, and we stood collectively up against Russia. That's been thrown out of the window with Trump, and I think it's deeply dangerous.
Well, there you go. Deeply dangerous. Do you share that sentiment? Coming up after the break, we've got lots that we need to discuss. Accusations of two-tier justice when it comes to sentencing in this country. Let's explore that.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
It's an unsettled story across some parts of Western Europe as we go through the next couple of days. There's the risk of some heavy, thundery rain bringing some flooding. There's a system pushing into Portugal, western Spain, and that's bringing some intense rain. Also, some heavy rain already affecting eastern parts of Spain, so further totals building up, causing more issues. More unsettled weather across parts of the Mediterranean, though further east towards Greece it's looking largely dry. Then quite a mixed bag when we head through the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
The latest GB News Travel.
Good evening, I'm Johnny Ratner. Long queues in South Yorkshire on the M1. The motorway's down to a single lane northbound from junction 34 to 35 near Rotherham for emergency repairs after a lorry struck the bridge, although there's also been a breakdown on that stretch, adding to the congestion. And staying in South Yorkshire, the A1M is partly blocked northbound near Doncaster following a breakdown. On the M61 in Greater Manchester, one lane's closed northbound from junction 1 to 2, just north of the M60. Emergency repairs are underway after that coach caught fire yesterday. Long queues back onto the clockwise and anti-clockwise carriageway of the motorway. In Berkshire on the M4, the inside lane of 4 is closed westbound 8 to 10. So this is heading away from Maidenhead towards Bracknell following an accident. And in Rhondda-Cunnon-Taff near to Tonnereville, the A4119 is closed for accidents investigation work. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry. This is Dewbs & Co with you till 7 o'clock tonight. Alongside me, Bill Rammell and Kelvin McKenzie remain. We've had a long conversation at the start of this programme about the goings-on, the latest twists and turns when it comes to world peace and the situation in Ukraine. Lots of you are getting in touch. This question comes up. I mean, first and foremost, so much support for Zelensky, as you would expect, comes through. You want as much support as possibly can be given to support and bring about the end of the war in Ukraine. There's also, though, the other side of the fence, which is saying, hang on a second, no one seems to be questioning all of these billions of pounds going into Ukraine. Are they actually being audited and spent effectively and efficiently? And who are all of these people that will be expected to essentially be pulled onto that front line in order to fight? I'll tell you someone that's really benefiting, if that's the right word, from all of this upset and the toing and froing and the twist and turn. That is Keir Starmer's popularity rating. I've got to say, this has been quite staggering, Kelvin McKenzie, to watch. I can bring it up because he's really getting what you might call a war boost. And I know that sounds a little bit crass, but he's actually going up now. He's got his highest poll ratings in 6 months. He's up to 31 points. Nigel Farage, I would say, he is the core primary victim of this because he is down.
Well, it's no surprise. I mean, Nigel got it on the up when Trump was considered one of the great political comebacks in history, or was the greatest political, and now he's going to get it on the down. So I'm Nigel, I'm sitting there. There's not much I can do about it, actually. I attach myself to him, and I remain a friend of his. So he has got this for 4 years. And unfortunately, that 4 years coincides with the 4-year electoral cycle of the UK. So what he's got to hope is that in 4 years' time, that Trump is on the up as he exits and not on the down, on doing something like Trumpish, which would be, in my mind, Trump will be suggesting that possibly he stays on for another 4 years, despite it being against the Constitution. And so then, unfortunately, Nigel will suffer. The idea that Starmer can only get a boost out of Trump it makes me laugh, to be absolutely honest with you. So he, too, will be hoping that Trump continues to be a massive bogey figure for the duration of his time as Prime Minister. So it's an incredible times now. So what Harold Wilson said was right.
A week's a long time in politics.
A week is a long time in politics.
But look, credit where credit's due. Keir has had a very, very impressive couple of weeks. The meeting with Trump, the leadership at the summit last weekend. I'll tell you what, it's not often I say I'm really proud to be British, but Keir leaving Downing Street to welcome Zelensky into Downing Street. I almost had a tear in my eye. That was leadership. And I think what Keir has needed for a long time is definition, and I think he's beginning to get that. The other side of this is, you and I were talking a couple of weeks ago, Kelvin, and you said this is going to become a problem for Nigel Farage, and it is, because he has been a sycophant for Trump. And look at the polling evidence.
Or a friend, as we like to
I'd call him a sycophant. And look at the polling. 80% of British people have a very unfavourable view of Trump. Farage is poles apart from where the British people are.
Yes, however, it does make me laugh that Starmer has 2 good weeks. What about the previous 6 months, or 7 months?
I've acknowledged before, it's not been the best start.
So look, things go up and down in politics, but this is a bump that Number 10 could never have foreseen.
Well, you guys have all been getting in touch about this. John says, Michelle, I'm dumbfounded. What are Starmer's successes since the election? John says, I feel like he's using the war in Ukraine as a massive distraction from the economic problems, the immigration problems, and the ill-thought-out, harmful policies that are affecting us here in the UK. Rob says, it's making me laugh because all of these people now walking around the EU, European leaders making out like they are the ones that are going to somehow resolve this conflict in Ukraine. He says they've had 3 years to resolve things and they haven't achieved it, but yet now they are acting as though they are critical to the peace deal. June says, when is Starmer going to actually focus on the British people? Starmer, she says, has been talking war, not peace, when talking about things like boots on the ground and missiles and money. Does that sound like peacekeeping to you, she says? And that is an interesting point, isn't it? The domestic agenda, it's all well and good focusing on the international stage stage, and all of you high-fiving yourselves about what you're achieving. But what about what's going on here in this country? Of course, we had things like that Employers' Rights Bill. It didn't get really much scrutiny because there's so much focus on the Ukrainian side of things. But another thing that's getting scrutiny, and rightly so, if you ask me, the Sentencing Council, they've issued these new guidance, new rules, essentially, which mean that you have to consider a criminal's ethnicity. It's not just the ethnicity, it's whether or not they're young, whether or not they're female, whether or not they're pregnant, and so on. But many people have picked up, particularly on this ethnicity point, and saying that what it will essentially, or could mean, is that people from an ethnic minority background, Kelvin, could potentially get a lesser sentence because of their skin colour.
Well, it's disgraceful. It's disgraceful, and it's good to see that that the Labour minister involved in it said it's disgraceful as well. But the man who on the right of the argument, Generic, has been excellent in this and has actually put Badenoch to the sword because she has remained. She's much too quiet, right? I don't make any secret I'm of the right. I want her, I don't want her to be a Trump, but I want her to campaign every day and I want her to take the big issues. Generic has taken this up and got running with it, and I congratulate him. And I just wonder how much longer the right of our argument can be conducted by a leader who cannot seem to make any indent into what's happening in our country. And the point that you made there was right about what Starmer's up to. Look, I admire what Starmer's done, actually. He's fine. He hasn't put a foot wrong on it, and it could be very easy to put a foot wrong in this. However, last Sunday, 592 migrants washed up at Dover, right? And that was a record for any March day for about 4 years, actually in the history of migration, right? What's happening on that? What's happening on that front? What is being done? Those 592 didn't get the smash the gangs email, did they? What's happening? There are lots of things. There is the fact that loads of small businesses face a perilous future because, and included with, the problems connected with this workers' rights bill being pushed through by Rayner. There are issues in there like having sickness from day one, having maternity from day one, which are absolutely wrong. People turn up on day one, oh, I've got some bad news for you. I'm pregnant. Oh, well, that'll be all right. You'll be gone in 3 months, and then we'll probably never see you again. I'll have to pay you while you're away. Nobody in their right mind wants this stuff, especially at a difficult and unproductive time for our country. And so, yes, Ukraine is being used as a cover. I'm not saying it's not deliberately used as a cover, right? Not deliberately used as a cover, but it's a cover for a whole series of things going wrong. You see what happens on March the 26th. Unfortunately, I'm not here. But on March the 26th, we are in for a massive budgetary problem by a Chancellor who said that she wasn't going to do any of this. Taxes will be going up.
Well, we've got to pay for the defence commitments that we've made. That's the realpolitik of this situation. But look, you know, it's a mixed picture. Look at, you talk about the workers' rights, Kelvin. Look at the polling evidence. The vast majority of people support it. Look at the fact that wages are now regularly outstripping inflation, which means that people's real living standards are increasing. That's all right if it's
matched by productivity, Bill, but it's not if we're just we're printing money. If we're printing money, we're going to go bust.
It is boosting people's living standards. NHS waiting list target met 5 months ahead of schedule. We're beginning to turn it round. But come back to this issue about the criminal justice system. I don't agree with this at all, and the government doesn't agree with this. And for me, and I don't normally bash the civil service...
Why wasn't it objected to, then?
Well, because the first Shabana Mahmood knew about it was when it hit the press yesterday, and that's the point I was going to make. I don't normally bash the civil service, but a senior civil servant sat in the Sentencing Council meeting as an observer, heard what the proposal was and told not one minister that this was happening. And it needs to be reversed, and it needs to be reversed quickly. However, what is driving it, and, you know, a lot of people say we have a two-tier criminal justice system. Actually, people from ethnic and minority backgrounds tend to serve longer sentences than white people.
Well, and perhaps they're more serious crimes.
No, but
perhaps they're more serious crimes, and perhaps they carry out more crimes as well. Why is it that it's always suggested that it must be that white people are jailing people of colour for longer because they don't like the colour of them? It's a ridiculous argument.
I'm not suggesting that, Kelvin, but I think that may be what's behind this from the Sentencing Council point of view. But there are ways to deal with that through training for the judiciary and monitoring, not through having different standards for people based on the colour of their skin.
What do you mean when you say training? Because, of course, this is what they're saying. What they're suggesting is there's the numbers, when you look, as we're suggesting, when you look at the numbers of white people in prison versus ethnic minorities, they're saying that there's a disparity there. And when you say you can solve this with training, what
Well, OK,
what are you
so
talking about?
as I understand it, for every category of crime,
Yeah.
people from ethnic minority backgrounds serve longer sentences than white people. That raises questions about the sentencing, and I think you need training for judges in the way that they mete out sentences.
But hold on, because if you're saying it raises questions and therefore we've got to train judges because essentially they're racist, is what I'm suggesting.
I'm not saying deliberately racist, but, you know, all of us...
Unconscious bias.
Yeah, and I think that is an example of potential unconscious bias.
But that statistic that you're telling me in terms of skin colours of people behind bars, that opens a conversation. It doesn't reach a conclusion, does it? Because the only way you can tell whether or not there's unconscious bias or racism or whatever labels people want to call is if you look at two individuals that have done the same type of crime, but also have the same previous criminal convictions, similar aggravating factors and so on. Only once you look at the whole picture and then you put them together can you look and go, these two cases are identical, and yet still the person that was non-white got this sentence. You can't just look across the prison estate and go, right, I don't know, there's 10 ethnic minorities and 2 white people, and therefore there's unconscious bias or racism.
But Michelle, if it was a majority of categories of crime where there were more ethnic minority people than white people, you might say, OK, but statistically, for every category, for more ethnic minority people getting longer sentences, that raises questions and concerns. Right. But the way to resolve that is not to do what the Sentencing Council have done, which is treating people differently.
It's more training, train them out their biases.
Training and monitoring,
how do you know these biases exist?
Well, the reality is the Prime Minister, the Lord Chancellor, the Tory leadership have all made the position clear. This is not acceptable. And what they've said to this Sentencing Council that are made up of people like the DPP, for 5 years, Starmer was on it. When he was they've got a whole load of very senior judicial officials. For instance, the note that I think the cabinet minister sent to was to the guy. It was to an appeal judge. So we couldn't get higher. So and they've been told, you either change this, matey, or this is the last thing we're going to do. We're going to dismantle you. OK? So I expect there to be a change. I hope there's a change. And otherwise, it just leads to tension. It will lead to tension. So, and it will also, I suspect, lead to lots of appeals by white criminals. Well,
what do you make to all of that? A spokesman there has said that, as we've just been saying, that they think that one of the purposes of this is essentially to focus on the disparities when it comes to sentencing outcomes. They also suggest disadvantages faced within the criminal justice system, complexities of circumstances of individual offenders. Sentences decided by the independent judiciary following sentencing guidelines and taking into account all of the circumstances of the individual offence and the individual character. Well, we can all have backgrounds and complicated scenarios. You don't just have them if you're a woman or if you're an ethnic minority. Straight white men could also have complicated and impacting backgrounds as well. So if you want all of these reports, have them for everybody or none at all. Surely that's the fairest way of doing it, is it not?
We can't afford it.
Well, you know what? You would be able to afford it, actually, if you wasn't doing things like 26,000 people getting in dinghies and being put up in this country at the taxpayers' expense.
Yeah, and we need to reduce that, but you don't do it in 7 months, which I've said consistently on your programme. It takes time.
You can be the final judge on that one. Tell me your thoughts after the break. Love this one. Train companies that are badly performing. I mean, is there one that isn't, quite frankly? Naming and shaming them. I love it. Why would we just stop, though, at the train companies? We'll discuss that in 2.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. as we head into tomorrow. I'm afraid to say there is going to be less sunshine around, more cloudy skies, also some showers at times, but still remaining rather warm for the time of year. And it's all because we have low pressure moving in from the Atlantic, dragging in some frontal systems, so some more cloud and some outbreaks of rain. And we'll see that change as we head through into this evening. So much of northern England, parts of Wales and the southwest will see quite a lot of low cloud, so some murky conditions at times, some outbreaks of rain, but still staying relatively clear across parts of the southeast and then later on across parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. So turning a little bit chillier here with some patchy frost, but most towns and cities seeing a milder night if you compare it to recent nights. Then across Scotland, first thing, there's going to be a few clearer skies, still feeling chilly, largely dry, though we can't rule out a few showers just skirting the far north. And similar across Northern Ireland, brighter, perhaps with a bit more cloud across eastern areas. But for northern parts of England, parts of Wales and also the southwest, a lot of low clouds, so a murky start and quite damp at times with some outbreaks of rain. But East Anglia, Sussex and Kent likely to see a bright but chilly start to the day. Now we are going to see those cloudy skies continuing across much of the country. Still some outbreaks of rain at times. The best of the brightness still across parts of the southeast and then later on across parts of Scotland. So that's where we should see some sunshine. But for many, it is going to be a much cloudier day, but still feeling warm. Temperatures still widely above average, so highs of 15, possibly even 16 Celsius across the southeast. Then through onto Saturday, there'll be some cloud and some wet weather to start across Scotland, parts of the southwest. But through the course of the day, we'll see high pressure building back in. So once again, lots of dry weather around and lots of sunshine too. And temperatures still above average for the time of year, so still feeling pleasant. As we head into next week, more dry weather, more sunshine, but we'll see temperatures dip away. So some cold days and some cold nights ahead.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. Maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, I'm Michelle Dewberry. This is Dewbs & Co alongside me, Kelvin McKenzie and Bill Rammell. Something tells me that you'll like this next story. I absolutely love it, ladies and gents, because we talk about the state of the railways often, don't we? We don't need to rehash it. We know that so much of it now delayed if your train happens to run at all. We've got strikes very frequently, but what do we do about it then? Because digital boards, nearly 2,000 train stations in England will expose the state of it all. I mean, I think this is great, and I wouldn't even stop at train stations.
Yeah, do it.
I would have huge billboards, and I would kind of be naming and shaming the whole public sector outcome. And I know a lot of these train companies are private, but I would start with
Not
the
for
public
much
sector,
longer.
and I'd go from there. What do you think?
I think it's a fantastic idea. I wouldn't. Right. So I have a nightmare journey. Right. Right now, why isn't my train service as bad as it has been? It's because they've settled the strike, right? So the train drivers are all on somewhere between 70 and 90 grand, depending on whether they work a 4 or a 5 day week. Okay, so suddenly the trains start turning up on time. I guarantee to you, because we're only a couple of months away, right, that we'll go back to it cancelled, won't turn up. Right. So I have some other ideas. Up on this board, we also put what train driver failed to turn up, which led to the cancellation of my train the other day. I want his name. I also want his pay packet up there so that I can feel even more angry about the system. There's something. The system seems to work fine as long as we keep on paying everybody a lot of money, the train drivers.
Yeah, but you couldn't do that, could you? You couldn't just stick someone...
Yeah, stick their name up there. And also stick the name up there of the Waterloo station. I want the name of the general manager of the station and his personal, private mobile number, so I can call him up and explain to him how it is that I have to take the most diverse routes to try and get home when I suddenly discover that something's been cancelled or there is a trespasser on the line or something has happened. The trains, you have a look at Waterloo Station some nights when there's a signalling problem somewhere in the Surbiton area. There are literally 100,000 people in there, all desperate to get home at the end of a day's work, and suddenly the system isn't working for them. Why is that? And it's happened all my life. And by the way, under different governments as well. It's nothing to do with politics.
Do you know what? You're taking me back in time. My first job out of university was a management trainee with British Rail.
Oh, was it?
And I had to produce this report in my first few months on the trains leaving Liverpool Street. And as a young lefty, I'm sitting with my manager and he said, the train's running late, it's not left the platform, what do you do? And I came out with some rubbish about motivation and dialogue. He said, no, you get on the platform and you kick some backside. And I think metaphorically, he was right. And this move, I think, is good. All public services that have public scrutiny and exposure improve, whether that's schools, whether that's hospitals, where it's the train service. And this will be a tool for the public to put pressure on particular train operators and for the government to do so as well.
Bill, that's fine. Putting pressure on the train operators, great. Right, actually, our train network is run by the trade union movement, right? There are no ifs and buts about it. If they threaten a strike, they get the money. If they say there's going to be no trains on Wednesday because we want X amount of money, what are we going to do about that? What are we going to do with the fact that the train drivers have got us like that, and when they want some money, all they do is they squeeze?
Well, look, the Tory solution to that was you just have strike after strike after strike, and you've experienced that, Kelvin. I think we've resolved the strikes, and you've seen the benefit of that. But that's not going to happen every year.
OK, what's going to happen this year? They're going to be offered 2.8, right? They say we're skint. The money's got to go to fight for arms and all the rest of it. And what are they going to do? They're going to do exactly what they always do, which is take the passengers and use them as battering rams for huge pay rises, which they don't deserve.
We're going to have to stand our ground and see that down.
In which case, I am suffering, you're suffering.
Robbie's got an idea, the viewer. He says train drivers unions always get what they want from Labour. The farmers, he says, should cross and join the railway unions. He said they'll soon get their problem solved. Phil says, I used to prefer the railways to driving. However, based on his experience now, no way, Jose, he says, he will be hiring a car next time around. Philip gets in touch and says all public transport should never be allowed to run for profit. He thinks that would fix the whole situation when it comes to delays and so on. And I'm really proud and pleased to say that you lot at home are far more sensible than my panel, because at the start of the programme I was asking about Freddo chocolate bars. These two looked at me daft. Many of you at home are on my wavelength. You know exactly what I mean, and you're as furious as I am about the price of them. Goodness me, don't set me off. Gents, that's all I've got time for. Thanks to you at home. Have a good night.
We'll see a cold snap, which will quickly develop into a warm front. Boxed Boiler Repairs, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head into tomorrow, I'm afraid to say there is going to be less sunshine around, more cloudy skies, also some showers at times, but still remaining rather warm for the time of year. And it's all because we have low pressure moving in from the Atlantic, dragging in some frontal systems, so some more cloud and some outbreaks of rain. And we'll see that change as we head through into this evening. So much of northern England, parts of Wales and the southwest will see quite a lot of low cloud, so some murky conditions at times, some outbreaks of rain, but still staying relatively clear across parts of the southeast and then later on across parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. So turning a little bit chillier here with some patchy frost, but most towns and cities seeing a milder night if you compare it to recent nights. Then across Scotland, first thing, there's going to be a few clearer skies, still feeling chilly, largely dry, though we can't rule out a few showers just skirting the far north. And similar across Northern Ireland, brighter, perhaps with a bit more cloud across eastern areas. But for northern parts of England, parts of Wales and also the southwest, a lot of low clouds, so a murky start and quite damp at times with some outbreaks of rain. But East Anglia, Sussex and Kent likely to see a bright but chilly start to the day. Now we are going to see those cloudy skies continuing across much of the country. Still some outbreaks of rain at times. The best of the brightness still across parts of the southeast and then later on across parts of Scotland. So that's where we should see some sunshine. But for many, it is going to be a much cloudier day, but still feeling warm. Temperatures still widely above average, so highs of 15, possibly even 16 Celsius across the southeast. Then through onto Saturday, there'll be some cloud and some wet weather to start across Scotland, parts of the southwest. But through the course of the day, we'll see high pressure building back in. So once again, lots of dry weather around and lots of sunshine too. And temperatures still above average for the time of year, so still feeling pleasant. As we head into next week, more dry weather, more sunshine, but we'll see temperatures dip away. So some cold days and some cold nights ahead.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good evening, I'm Johnny Ratner. Problems in South Yorkshire for the M1. The motorway is down to a single lane on that three-lane stretch heading north from junction 34 to 35 near Rotherham. Emergency repairs are underway after a lorry caught